in the far reaches of the Norse world, where the mountains pierce the sky like the teeth of ancient beasts and the fjords stretch into frozen eternity, there is a silence that speaks, a silence not born of peace, but of warning. Here, beneath the frost-bitten soil and beneath stone mounds weathered by 1,000 winters, something ancient stirs. Something older than the gods, older than time. The Norse knew this silence. They feared it. Not every soul that died went to Valhalla. Not every spirit found its way to hell. Some were chained to the earth by rage, by jealousy, by greed. And in their burial mounds they waited, watching, listening. This is not a tale of Thor's thunder or Odin's wisdom. This is a tale of the Draugr, the dead who refused to die. Bloated and blackened by decay, yet animated by an unholy force, they rise from their tombs not to haunt but to destroy. Guardians of cursed treasure, sentinels of spite, embodiments of death's defiance. They come not in sunlight nor by divine summons, but when the air turns still and the ground groans beneath your feet. They rise not with the dawn, but with the hatred of death denied. And once awakened, the Draugr does not forgive. It does not forget. This is the story of the Draugr.
The word Draugr comes from Old Norse, meaning ghost or phantom, but the creature it describes is far more terrifying than mere spirit. For the Draugr is not a whisper in the dark, nor a fleeting shadow on the wall. It is a corpse that refuses to decay, a body still bound to the world of the living, twisted by rage and the thirst for dominion. These are not gentle spirits mourning their lost lives. These are warriors too proud to surrender to death, kings too greedy to leave behind their gold, villains too cruel to face the judgment of the underworld. Unlike specters who drift unseen, the Draugr are physical, hideously so. They claw their way from burial mounds with splintered fingers and fractured bone. Their flesh, bloated from the grave, is blackened with death and slick with rot. The stench of corruption surrounds them, choking the air. Animals flee their presence. Fire flickers when they pass. Even the ground beneath their feet seems to remember their weight from life and resists their tread in death. And yet, they move with grim purpose, not aimless wandering. With memories intact and hatred sharpened, they seek out those who wronged them, or those who dare disturb their rest. Norse sagas whisper this terrible truth. The more bitter, selfish, or power-hungry a soul in life, the more horrifying its resurrection. Death does not cleanse the Draugr, it corrupts it further. The face of the Draugr is not a singular horror, but many. Their appearance is as varied and grotesque as the fates that bind them to undeath. Some emerge from the grave swollen and grotesque, their bloated forms discolored with the hue of corpses drowned at sea. Skin stretched tight and blue-black like bruised frost. Veins bulge like roots beneath their flesh, pulsing with unnatural life. Others are desiccated and skeletal, resembling ancient mummies unearthed from the cold earth. Their skin, where it remains, is paper-thin and cracked, peeling from yellowed bone like bark from a dying tree. Yet within the hollow sockets of their skulls, a cold fire burns, blue, otherworldly, and ever watchful. The smell that follows them is unforgettable, a suffocating blend of rot, damp soil, and the iron tang of ancient blood. Even those too distant to see a Draugr can sense its presence on the wind. Their movements are deliberate, but never sluggish. Each step seems to carry the weight of the grave itself, yet they move with predatory precision, silent when they choose, swift when they strike. And they are strong, inhumanly so. The Draugr can shatter bone with bare hands, crush armor like brittle ice, and tear doors from hinges with terrifying ease. In some tales they grow to giant size, expanding with rage or to intimidate. In others they dissolve into mist, slipping through cracks in stone walls or vanishing beneath the earth. Some even ride phantom horses, galloping through the night sky. But perhaps the most unsettling trait of the Draugr is not their strength, nor their monstrous form. It is their mind. These are not empty husks driven by instinct. The Draugr remembers its life, its enemies, its unfinished grudges, its possessions. It holds these memories like weapons. It plots, it waits, and when it returns, it does so with purpose. A Draugr does not merely haunt. It hunts, and above all, it punishes. In the Old Norse world, death was not the end, but a passage. Her soul that died with honor and was given a proper burial might find rest in one of the realms beyond. The golden halls of Valhalla, the fertile fields of Folklore, or even the shadowed realm of Hell. But peace in death was never guaranteed. The line between the living and the dead was fragile, and if disturbed, it could be broken. The Draugr do not rise by chance. They are bound to the earth by powerful emotions and spiritual imbalance. Some rise from the sheer weight of their hatred, a soul too cruel, too greedy, or too jealous to let go of the world it left behind. These are the dead who clutch their wealth so tightly that even death could not pry it from their grasp. They become guardians of gold buried with them, cursed to watch over their treasure for eternity, lashing out at any who come too close. Others are victims of broken rites, when a funeral is rushed or rituals are neglected, or the dead are buried without the proper protections. A corpse denied the respect of the grave might rise, consumed by bitterness and rage. But there are darker stories still. Some Draugr awaken when ancient oaths are broken, promises made in life that echo into death. A warrior denied vengeance, a lover betrayed, a leader usurped. These spirits return to fulfill their unfinished purpose, often violently. There are even whispered tales that jealousy alone can summon them back. If the dead envy the living, envy their joy, their legacy, their survival, they may claw their way from the tomb to destroy that which they cannot have. And when they return, they do not merely haunt graveyards. Some Draugr poison wells, spreading disease through entire villages. Others slaughter livestock, turning prosperity into famine. Some stalk their former homes, crushing sleeping victims beneath rotting hands. And the most cunning of them all walk among the living in disguise. These Draugr speak, think, and deceive. They may visit their own families wearing familiar faces twisted by death. They sow chaos, unravel bonds, and ruin lives before vanishing back into the earth by dawn. Each return is a curse unfulfilled. Each rising, a consequence of imbalance, forgotten rites, or sins that refuse to stay buried. The Draugr is not summoned easily, but once awakened, it does not rest again. The Norse did not speak of the Draugr in whispers alone. Their sagas, epic tales passed down through generations, preserved the chilling encounters of those who faced the dead and lived to tell the tale. Among these, few are as enduring or as harrowing as the tale of Grettir the Strong. In the Grettir saga, the outlawed hero Grettir seeks refuge near a haunted barrow, the burial mound of Kar the Old, a once feared chieftain whose hatred did not die with his body. Villagers speak in fear of Kar's tomb. They say that anyone who dares approach his grave is never seen again, slain in the dark by a cold and monstrous hand. But Grettir, driven by both bravery and pride, chooses to confront the legend. He descends into the barrow alone, armed with little more than his sword and his resolve. Inside, the air is thick with rot and silence. Kar rises from his grave, a towering, bloated corpse with skin like dark stone and strength that defies nature. The battle that follows is fierce, brutal, and primal. Grettir fights not just a corpse, but a will that refuses to die. Blow for blow, the two clash in the cold earth beneath the barrow, wrestling with both strength and spirit. The struggle lasts the entire night. Only as dawn approaches does Grettir gain the upper hand. He decapitates Kar, then burns the body, ensuring the Draugr cannot return. But Grettir's victory is more than physical. It is symbolic. a mortal overcoming the unnatural grip of the restless dead. Yet not all who encounter the Draugr are so lucky. In other sagas, the dead rise with vengeance and plague entire communities. In Eyrbyggja saga, a cursed farmstead becomes a haven for the undead, as one death leads to another in a relentless chain. Livestock are found mutilated, family members collapse with terror, and the land itself seems poisoned by the presence of the Draugr. Elsewhere, Draugr return not for treasure but to punish. A woman who breaks a wedding vow, a man who cheats his brother, a warrior who flees from battle. The Draugr arrives not always with screams or blood, but with silence appearing at the threshold like a shadow remembered, and then exacting judgment. These stories are not mere fables, they are warnings carved into the bones of Norse belief. Never disturb the grave, never mock the dead, never forget that the past can rise with teeth. In the Norse world, death was never taken lightly. Every burial was a ritual of both reverence and caution, for while the body might perish, the will of a person, especially one full of rage, greed, or betrayal, might linger. The people of the North believed that death was not always the end, and so they prepared for what might come after. To keep the corpse at rest, ancient safeguards were employed, simple objects but charged with protective symbolism. Scissors were placed across the chest of the dead. Some believed this would cut the soul's ties to the body. Others said it would confuse or trap the spirit, making it unable to rise. Iron nails, symbols of finality and strength, were sometimes driven through the soles of the feet. This was not to harm the dead, but to pin them in place, anchoring them to their grave. Bodies were often buried face down, a desperate measure meant to confuse a restless soul. If the Draugr awoke, they would claw downward into the earth rather than upward into the world of the living. Some were bound with ropes or shrouds, a literal attempt to tie the soul to silence, ensuring it could not wander. But not all dead were treated equally. The dangerous dead, sorcerers, oathbreakers, tyrants, and murderers, were feared even after the breath had left their lungs. For these, the usual rituals were not enough. Their bodies were sometimes decapitated, their heads buried far from their torsos so that they could not rise whole. Fire, the most purifying force, became the last and most powerful line of defense. Cremation was not always common, but when it was chosen, it was with grim purpose. Fire consumed not just flesh, but memory, severing the soul's grip on the physical world. The ashes were then scattered to the winds, cast into rivers or hurled into the sea, spread so far and wide that no spirit could piece itself together again. Even after burial, the living remained vigilant. A sudden plague of misfortune, livestock dying, nightmares spreading, illness creeping through a village, might be seen as a sign. A Draugr stirs beneath the earth. When that happened, grave mounds were reopened and the body examined. If it appeared untouched by decay, swollen, blood at the mouth, it was a sure sign. The corpse would then be burned, scattered, or sealed with stone and spell. For the Norse, the dead did not merely sleep, they watched, and sometimes they returned. Though the longboats no longer sail and the old gods are whispered only in myth, one shadow from the Viking age continues to walk among us, the Draugr. These walking corpses, born of rot and rage, have found new life in the stories we tell today. In modern fantasy, they are immortalized, grim reminders of death denied. In the acclaimed video game Skyrim, the Draugr are unmistakable. They dwell deep within ancient Nordic tombs, armed and armored in their burial garb, waiting to slay any who disturb their slumber. Their groans echo through stone corridors, and their cursed eyes glow with undead hatred. These depictions are no accident. They are direct descendants of saga-born terrors. In Game of Thrones, the icy whites of the north walk in chilling silence, their every movement a perversion of life. While not called Draugr, They bear the same cold fire, the same creeping dread, and the same relentless purpose. In literature, comics, tabletop games, and films, the Draugr has evolved from myth to archetype, the intelligent undead, cursed by unresolved desire, bound to the earth by more than death. But their story is not only fiction. In the folklore of rural Scandinavia, stories still flicker like candle flames in the dark. Elderly voices recall creatures that lurk near ancient barrows, graveyards where animals shy away, mountainside tombs where no moss grows, and where cold wind blows in the height of summer. Some believe the Draugr still walks among us, not in games or screens, but in reality. Local legends tell of unexplained deaths, of people falling ill after wandering too close to old burial sites, of dreams haunted by pale faces, and of footprints in freshly fallen snow, leading nowhere. Even now, in parts of Iceland and Norway, roads have been rerouted to avoid disturbing ancient graves, a gesture not just of respect, but of fear. In the end, the Draugr has become more than myth. It is a symbol, a warning that the past does not always rest easy, that greed, betrayal, and hatred echo beyond the grave, and that in the cold earth of the north, the dead do not always stay dead. In the world of Norse myth, death was never final. It was not a wall, but a veil, thin and trembling, separating the realm of the living from that of the dead. And sometimes that veil tears. The Draugr is more than a corpse animated by hate. It is a reflection of something ancient and unresolved, a time when people feared not only the end of life, but what might follow it. These stories echo from a brutal age, when storms could swallow ships, when fjords held secrets, and when the dead were buried not just with honor, but with caution. A time when a grave was never simply a resting place. It was a warning. The Draugr reminds us that not all darkness sleeps quietly, that some souls are too bitter, too broken, or too bound to let go. So the next time you wander near a moss-covered barrow or pass beneath the shadow of a forgotten cairn, and the wind bites a little colder, and the silence grows a little too deep, ask yourself, are you truly alone? Because in the forgotten corners of the north, the past still breathes, and what was once buried may yet rise again.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.